Right now, somewhere in the world, two people are waking up to the exact same morning. They were born in the same year. They are the same age on paper, but biologically, they are not aging at the same speed. One body wakes up stiff, inflamed, exhausted before the day even begins. The other gets out of bed with energy that feels strangely untouched by time. The difference between them is not just cosmetic, it's happening deep inside tissues, inside blood vessels, inside the brain, inside tiny cellular structures silently producing energy every second of the day. And the strangest part is this. Most people think aging is something that suddenly appears later in life, but aging is happening right now, in this moment, inside you. Tiny decisions are constantly being made inside your body. Repair or postpone, recover or compensate, rebuild or survive. And over years, those invisible decisions begin to appear on the outside, in the skin, in posture, in energy, in movement, in recovery speed, even in the eyes. You've probably met someone who seemed unusually young for their age. Maybe they were in their 50s but moved like they were 35. Maybe their face aged slowly. Maybe they recovered faster. Maybe they carried a kind of calm energy that felt difficult to explain. And you may have wondered, what are they doing differently? Better genetics? Better habits? Better luck? Partly. But modern biology is revealing something much more fascinating. Some people are not simply aging well. Their bodies are maintaining repair systems more effectively for longer periods of time. Because aging is not just about how many birthdays you've had. Aging is the gradual accumulation of microscopic damage combined with the body's changing ability to repair it. And that process is far more dynamic than most people realize. Your body is not a statue slowly eroding with time. It is more like a city rebuilding itself every night. Proteins are replaced, cells are repaired, damaged structures are removed, DNA errors are corrected. Immune cells patrol for threats. The brain reorganizes connections while you sleep. Even now, your body is rebuilding parts of itself. But there's a problem. Modern life is placing many bodies into a state where repair is continuously interrupted, like construction crews trying to rebuild a city during a non-stop emergency. The lights never fully turn off, the alarms never fully stop, the nervous system never fully settles. And eventually, the body begins reallocating energy away from long-term maintenance. That's when aging often accelerates. Not all at once, quietly, until one day people suddenly say, "I feel older." What's fascinating is that many viewers will recognize this sensation immediately. There are periods of life where people seem to age rapidly after chronic stress, poor sleep, grief, burnout, or emotional overload. And there's a biological reason for that. Because the body keeps score of repeated strain in ways that are both visible and invisible. Sometimes the face changes first. Sometimes energy disappears first. Sometimes recovery slows down. Sometimes motivation fades. Sometimes inflammation quietly rises for years before symptoms appear. And yet, other people seem remarkably resilient. Not invincible, not immortal, but biologically buffered against accelerated decline. Their bodies still experience damage, everyone does, but they appear better able to return to balance. And that ability may be one of the most important hidden predictors of how humans age. The real mystery is not why humans age. The real mystery is why some bodies lose resilience so much faster than others. Because beneath wrinkles, gray hair, and birthdays, there is a hidden biological conversation happening every second of your life. A conversation between stress and recovery, damage and repair, survival and regeneration. And once you understand that conversation, you start seeing aging completely differently. But to understand why some people barely seem to age, you first have to understand something most people never learn. Your real biological age may be very different from the number on your driver's license, and modern science is beginning to reveal just how dramatic that difference can become. Most people imagine aging as a clock, simple, linear, unavoidable. Every year you get a little older, a little weaker, a little slower. But inside the body, aging does not happen with the smooth rhythm people imagine. It behaves more like weather. Some periods accelerate damage. Some periods allow recovery. Some push the body deeper into survival mode. Others restore resilience. Which means two people can live through the same number of years while their biology tells completely different stories. This is where scientists began separating two very different concepts: chronological age and biological age. Chronological age is just time. Biological age is how much wear, dysfunction, inflammation, and repair capacity your body has accumulated along the way. And sometimes the gap between those two numbers becomes enormous. Researchers studying biological aging have found something deeply unsettling. Certain patterns inside the body predict aging more accurately than birthdays do. Things like chronic inflammation, insulin resistance, sleep disruption, reduced cardiovascular flexibility, mitochondrial decline, and stress chemistry. In other words, your tissues may be aging at a different speed than the calendar. And the body leaves clues everywhere: in the elasticity of blood vessels, in muscle recovery, in immune response, in reaction time, in hormonal stability, even in how quickly skin repairs microscopic damage. What people casually describe as looking young for your age is often connected to something far deeper: a body that has preserved repair efficiency. Because aging is not just the presence of damage, it is what happens when damage begins outpacing recovery. And this process starts much earlier than most people think. Not at 70, not at retirement. For many people, subtle biological aging acceleration begins in their 30s, sometimes even earlier. Not because the body suddenly fails, but because modern environments gradually overload systems that evolved for very different conditions. Your ancestors did not evolve under constant artificial light, continuous notifications, sedentary work, ultra-processed food, social overstimulation, sleep fragmentation, and non-stop cognitive stress. Yet many modern bodies experience all of these simultaneously every day. And the body adapts. That's the important word, adapts. Because your biology is not passively collapsing, it is responding. If stress signals remain elevated long enough, the nervous system changes, hormones shift, inflammation patterns alter, energy allocation changes. The body begins making difficult trade-offs. And this is where aging becomes more complicated than wrinkles or gray hair. Imagine your body as a city managing limited resources during a prolonged crisis. When danger feels constant, roads stop being repaired, infrastructure weakens, small problems accumulate quietly in the background. Inside the body, something similar happens. When survival signals remain elevated for long periods, repair slows, recovery weakens, sleep quality changes, immune balance shifts, and energy becomes increasingly directed toward immediate function rather than long-term preservation. The body becomes more reactive, and less restorative. One of the clearest examples happens deep inside structures called mitochondria. These tiny energy-producing components exist in almost every cell of your body. You can think of them as microscopic power plants. When mitochondria function efficiently, energy feels stable, recovery improves, inflammation stays more controlled, and tissues maintain themselves more effectively. But chronic stress chemistry, inactivity, poor sleep, and metabolic overload gradually impair mitochondrial efficiency over time. Not instantly, gradually. Like a city experiencing rolling blackouts, cells begin producing energy less efficiently, oxidative stress increases, recovery slows, and people often experience this subjectively long before they understand the biology behind it. They say things like, "I don't feel like myself anymore. I feel tired all the time. I don't recover like I used to. I suddenly feel older." Many viewers may recognize that moment immediately, that strange period where aging suddenly feels noticeable, not because years passed overnight, but because accumulated biological strain finally became difficult to ignore. And yet, this still raises a major question. If modern life accelerates aging for so many people, why do some individuals remain remarkably resilient? Why do some bodies maintain energy, movement, cognitive sharpness, and recovery far longer than expected? Why do some people seem biologically younger despite stress, work, and life challenges? The answer has less to do with perfection and far more to do with something hidden beneath nearly every system in the human body: the balance between damage and repair. And modern life may be disrupting that balance far more aggressively than most people realize. Right now, inside your body, tiny forms of damage are happening constantly. That sounds alarming, but it's actually normal. Cells produce waste while generating energy, proteins become damaged and need replacement, DNA experiences microscopic errors, inflammation rises and falls, muscle fibers break down and rebuild. Immune cells attack threats and create collateral stress along the way. Life itself creates wear. The problem is not damage. The problem is when the body no longer gets enough opportunity to fully recover from it. And modern life is unusually good at interrupting recovery. Not dramatically, quietly, in ways most people barely notice. Take stress, for example. Your stress response was designed for short bursts of survival. A threat appears, adrenaline rises, heart rate increases, glucose becomes rapidly available, attention narrows, inflammation temporarily shifts, blood flow changes. Your body prepares for action. Then, ideally, the danger ends. The nervous system settles. Cortisol drops. Repair resumes. But many modern humans never fully exit the stress response. Not because they are weak, because the brain interprets modern life as a continuous stream of unresolved demands. Emails, deadlines, financial pressure, social comparison, notifications, lack of sleep, emotional tension, information overload. The body reacts to psychological uncertainty surprisingly similarly to physical threat. And when stress chemistry remains elevated too often, the biological consequences begin spreading everywhere. Sleep becomes lighter and less restorative, blood sugar regulation becomes less stable, inflammatory signaling increases, muscle recovery slows, the immune system becomes more reactive, fatigue deepens. Even collagen repair in the skin can become impaired under prolonged cortisol elevation. People often think they are just getting older, but sometimes the body is simply exhausted from maintaining survival mode for too long. And one of the biggest aging accelerators is invisible, precisely because it feels normal. Poor sleep. Not one bad night, chronic sleep disruption. During deep sleep, the body performs some of its most important repair work. Growth hormone pulses increase tissue repair, the brain clears metabolic waste through the glymphatic system, immune coordination changes, protein synthesis increases, memory reorganizes, inflammatory balance shifts. Sleep is not passive rest, it is an active biological reconstruction period. But modern environments are aggressively disrupting it. Artificial light after sunset delays melatonin release, late-night stimulation keeps the nervous system alert, irregular schedules confuse circadian timing, stress fragments sleep architecture. And over time, many people begin functioning with partially reduced nightly recovery for years. Imagine trying to renovate a building every night, while construction crews keep getting interrupted halfway through. Eventually, the unfinished damage accumulates. Then there's movement, or more specifically, the lack of it. Human biology evolved expecting regular muscular activity. Movement regulates blood flow, stimulates mitochondrial adaptation, improves insulin sensitivity, activates anti-inflammatory signaling molecules called myokines, supports brain-derived neurotrophic factor, or BDNF, which helps maintain neural resilience. Your muscles are not just mechanical structures, they are biochemical communication organs. When movement disappears from daily life, the body interprets it biologically, and the consequences ripple outward. Reduced metabolic flexibility, weaker circulation, lower energy efficiency, increased stiffness, poorer glucose regulation, and accelerated physical decline over time. This is one reason sedentary exhaustion feels so strange. People sit still all day, yet feel depleted, because the body was never designed to generate health through prolonged inactivity. Then there's another factor modern life quietly amplifies: chronic low-grade inflammation. This is not the dramatic inflammation of a visible injury, it's subtler, persistent immune activation, small inflammatory signals continuously circulating through the body. And over years, this matters enormously. Inflammation affects blood vessels, brain function, joint health, metabolism, skin aging, hormonal signaling, and cellular repair efficiency. Some researchers even describe aging itself as partially inflammatory in nature, a process sometimes called inflammaging. Not because inflammation is evil, inflammation is protective, but because chronic unresolved inflammation slowly changes the biological environment tissues live inside. And perhaps the most fascinating part is this: many people can physically feel these processes long before medical tests reveal major problems. They notice slower recovery, brain fog, fatigue, reduced resilience, more stiffness, worsened stress tolerance, lower motivation. The body whispers before it screams. But modern culture often teaches people to override those whispers, push through, keep going, ignore fatigue, normalize exhaustion, until eventually the body adapts around survival instead of restoration. And this is where the story becomes deeply important, because some people are not necessarily avoiding damage better than everyone else. They are simply far more effective at returning their biology back into repair mode. Their bodies recover more efficiently from the same world. And that changes everything, because aging may depend less on whether damage occurs and more on whether the body still believes it has enough safety, energy, and stability to rebuild itself afterward. If you study people who remain unusually youthful deep into later life, something interesting begins to appear. It's rarely just one thing, not one miracle food, not one supplement, not one perfect habit. Instead, their biology often reflects a pattern, a body that repeatedly returns to balance. Because youthfulness is not simply the absence of wrinkles, it's the preservation of adaptability, the ability to recover, to regulate, to repair, to respond without becoming trapped in chronic dysfunction. And many of the people who age remarkably well seem to protect that adaptability in ways they may not even consciously realize. One of the clearest examples is movement. Not punishment-style exercise, not endless exhausting, consistent movement. Walking, lifting, climbing stairs, carrying things, changing posture, using the body regularly. When muscles contract, something remarkable happens. They release signaling molecules called myokines that communicate throughout the body. Some help regulate inflammation, some improve insulin sensitivity, some influence brain function and neuroplasticity. Movement literally changes the chemical conversation happening inside you. This is one reason physically active people often appear biologically younger than sedentary individuals of the same age. Their bodies remain metabolically engaged. Blood vessels stay more flexible. Mitochondria receive stimulation to adapt and multiply through processes linked to mitochondrial biogenesis. Circulation improves. Glucose handling remains more stable. The body receives a repeated message: stay capable, stay prepared, maintain the system. And the effects extend far beyond muscles. The brain benefits too. Exercise increases blood flow and supports BDNF, brain-derived neurotrophic factor, a protein strongly associated with neural resilience and learning. In simple terms, movement tells the brain that life is still demanding adaptation, and the brain responds by maintaining itself more aggressively. Then there's sleep. People who age well often protect sleep with surprising seriousness, not because sleep is trendy, because biologically, sleep may be one of the most powerful anti-aging environments the human body possesses. During deep sleep, growth hormone supports tissue repair, the nervous system recalibrates, immune coordination shifts, memory consolidates, metabolic regulation improves. It is one of the few periods where the body can temporarily redirect enormous energy toward maintenance. And when deep sleep repeatedly disappears, aging often accelerates quietly. Many viewers have experienced this personally. After several nights of poor sleep, the face looks older, stress feels heavier, motivation declines, hunger changes, recovery worsens. The body visibly changes when restoration is interrupted. Then there's another factor people often underestimate: emotional regulation. Some individuals age with a kind of calm nervous system stability that protects them biologically, not because their lives are easy, but because their bodies recover from stress more efficiently. This matters more than most people realize. The autonomic nervous system constantly shifts between activation and recovery states. Sympathetic activation prepares you for action. Parasympathetic activation supports digestion, repair, recovery, and restoration. Healthy biology requires flexibility between both, but chronic hypervigilance changes that balance. When the body rarely feels safe enough to fully downshift, heart rate variability often declines, inflammation may remain elevated, sleep quality worsens, stress hormones stay active longer. Over years, the body pays for prolonged physiological tension. Some researchers now believe perceived safety itself may influence longevity more deeply than we once understood. Not abstract optimism, biological safety, a nervous system that repeatedly receives signals, "You can recover now." And one of the strongest sources of those signals is surprisingly human connection. People with strong social bonds consistently show better long-term health outcomes across many studies. At first glance, that seems emotional, but underneath it is biology. Safe social connection influences stress chemistry, oxytocin signaling, inflammatory regulation, cardiovascular function, even immune resilience. Humans are profoundly social organisms. Isolation is not merely psychological, the body experiences it physiologically. Then there's metabolistic flexibility. Many people who age well maintain relatively stable energy systems for longer periods. Their bodies remain better at switching between fuel sources, regulating glucose, and managing energy demands without constant metabolic chaos. This doesn't mean perfection, it means resilience, the ability to return toward balance after disruption. And this may be one of the most overlooked truths about aging. Youthfulness is not constant optimization, it is recovery capacity, the body's ability to absorb stress and still rebuild afterward. Some people unknowingly preserve this capacity for decades, others gradually lose it under the pressure of modern life. But there's an even deeper layer beneath all of this, a hidden biological principle that changes the entire way aging makes sense. Because your body is constantly making one core decision. Should energy be invested into long-term repair or immediate survival? And once you understand how the body answers that question, you begin to understand why some people seem to age so differently from others. For most of human history, survival came first. Always. If food was scarce, if danger was nearby, if injury threatened survival, the body shifted priorities immediately. Energy moved toward immediate protection, away from long-term maintenance. And that ancient biological hierarchy still exists inside you today. This may be the single most important realization in understanding aging. Your body does not invest heavily in longevity when it believes survival is uncertain. That changes everything. Because many people think aging is simply the body breaking down. But often, the body is strategically reallocating resources, like a city diverting money away from renovation during a crisis. The problem is that modern humans can remain in low-grade biological crisis for years. Not dramatic panic, continuous subtle strain. The body interprets chronic unpredictability as information, and eventually it adapts around it. If sleep becomes inconsistent, if stress remains elevated, if recovery disappears, if blood sugar swings constantly, if inflammation remains chronically active, the body begins acting differently. Repair slows, hormonal balance shifts, energy efficiency changes, tissue maintenance weakens. Not because the body is lazy, because survival is expensive. One of the clearest examples happens in the nervous system. When the brain repeatedly detects threat, uncertainty, overload, or instability, the autonomic nervous system spends more time in defensive states. Heart rate stays slightly elevated, muscles maintain low-grade tension, attention becomes more vigilant, stress hormones circulate more frequently. And here's the hidden cost. Repair is biologically easier in states of safety. This is why chronic stress ages people so visibly. Not because stress magically creates wrinkles overnight, but because the body gradually reallocates biological resources toward short-term survival chemistry instead of long-term restoration. Over time, this affects almost everything. Skin repair slows, inflammatory signaling rises, sleep becomes fragmented, digestion changes, recovery worsens, immune coordination shifts. Even mitochondrial efficiency can decline under prolonged stress exposure. The body becomes increasingly reactive and less regenerative. This is why some people suddenly seem to age dramatically after periods of grief, burnout, caregiving, trauma, or chronic emotional pressure. Viewers who have lived through intense stress often recognize this immediately. There are periods in life where people look in the mirror and think, "I aged so much this year." And biologically, something real may have happened, because psychological experiences are translated into physiological states. The body listens to repeated emotional conditions, not just thoughts, biological conditions. And this leads to one of the most misunderstood ideas in modern health culture. Many people try to fight aging aggressively. Extreme restriction, obsessive optimization, punishing routines, constant self-monitoring. But paradoxically, living in a permanent state of pressure can itself become biologically aging. Because the body does not interpret obsession as safety. It interprets relentless strain as strain. This does not mean discipline is harmful. It means the biology of longevity depends heavily on balance between challenge and recovery. Humans require stress to remain strong. Exercise stresses muscles. Learning stresses the brain. Temperature variation stimulates adaptation. Physical effort strengthens systems. But beneficial stress works because recovery follows it. Without recovery, stress stops becoming adaptive. It becomes corrosive. And this changes how we should think about people who age remarkably well. Many of them are not avoiding all stress. They are preserving the ability to recover from it. Their nervous systems return to baseline more effectively. Their sleep restores more deeply. Their movement supports resilience. Their biology repeatedly exits survival mode. And the difference becomes cumulative over decades. This is where aging begins to feel less mysterious. The body is constantly asking, do we have enough safety, enough energy, enough stability to invest in long-term maintenance? Or do we need to prioritize immediate survival instead? And your biology answers that question every day through sleep quality, movement, nutrition, stress load, social connection, light exposure, recovery, and emotional regulation. The body adapts accordingly. This is why two people can eat similarly, exercise similarly, and still age very differently. Because aging is not controlled by one habit. It emerges from the total biological environment the body experiences repeatedly over time. And once you see aging through that lens, many modern behaviors suddenly look completely different. Especially the everyday habits most people barely notice, the ones silently pushing the body deeper into chronic biological overload. Some of the strongest forces accelerating aging are so normalized that people rarely question them anymore. They don't feel dangerous, they feel ordinary, which may be exactly why they matter so much. Take artificial light. For almost all of human history, darkness signaled biological repair. Sunset triggered changes throughout the body. Melatonin began rising. Body temperature gradually dropped. The nervous system prepared for recovery. But modern humans can now flood their eyes with daylight-level stimulation deep into the night. Phones, LED lighting, streaming screens, bright indoor environments after sunset. And the brain responds biologically. Light entering the eyes influences a tiny region of the brain called the suprachiasmatic nucleus, one of the body's central circadian timing systems. When bright light exposure continues late into the evening, melatonin release can become delayed. Sleep timing shifts later, sleep quality changes, recovery windows shrink. And over years, circadian disruption begins affecting far more than sleep. Hormonal timing changes, metabolism becomes less stable, inflammatory patterns shift, cortisol rhythms flatten, cellular repair coordination weakens, the body loses temporal precision. Many people think they are simply night owls. Sometimes the biology is more complicated. Then there's food. Not just calories alone, information. Because food is not just fuel, food changes hormonal signaling, inflammatory responses, gut microbiome composition, blood sugar regulation, and cellular stress pathways. Ultra-processed foods create a particularly strange situation for human biology. Many are engineered to deliver intense reward with minimal satiety and low nutritional complexity. The brain receives powerful stimulation, but the body often receives incomplete biological support. Blood glucose rises rapidly, insulin surges, energy crashes follow, hunger signaling becomes dysregulated. Over time, repeated metabolic instability can gradually increase oxidative stress and inflammatory load. And many people experience the consequences subjectively long before diagnosis appears. Energy instability, cravings, brain fog, fatigue after meals, poor recovery. The body constantly communicates through sensations. Modern culture often teaches people to ignore them. Then there's something even more subtle: constant stimulation. The human nervous system evolved in environments with natural fluctuations of intensity, moments of effort, moments of stillness. But many modern environments create uninterrupted cognitive occupation, notifications, music, scrolling, news, background noise, continuous information intake. The brain rarely experiences true silence anymore. And this matters because attention itself consumes biological resources. The nervous system was not designed for endless novelty exposure. Dopamine pathways gradually adapt to overstimulation. Baseline satisfaction can decline, mental fatigue increases, focus fragments. Some researchers believe constant stimulation may contribute to the growing sense that many people feel simultaneously exhausted and restless. Tired bodies, overactive minds. And perhaps nowhere is modern aging acceleration more visible than in sedentary living. Human circulation evolved around movement. Muscular contractions help push blood and lymphatic fluid throughout the body. Movement stimulates vascular flexibility, supports glucose transport, maintains joint function. When the body remains physically inactive for long periods, systems begin down-regulating capacity. Muscles weaken, mitochondrial density declines, circulation efficiency decreases, insulin sensitivity worsens, and the body quietly becomes less biologically adaptable. What's remarkable is how quickly the body responds once movement disappears. Studies show measurable declines in insulin sensitivity, and cardiovascular conditioning can begin surprisingly fast during prolonged inactivity. The body adapts to underuse with alarming efficiency. Then there's emotional exhaustion, one of the least visible aging accelerators of all. Not dramatic emotional collapse, chronic emotional depletion. The feeling of carrying unresolved tension for years. The body experiences prolonged emotional stress physically. Heart rate changes, muscle tension persists, inflammatory signaling shifts, sleep quality declines, stress hormones remain elevated longer. People often separate emotional life from physical aging. Biology does not. And many viewers may recognize this deeply. There are periods where people suddenly feel older after years of caregiving, chronic conflict, burnout, loneliness, or emotional suppression. The body absorbs repeated emotional conditions like climate, quietly, gradually, cumulatively. But this is where the story becomes hopeful, because the same biology capable of adapting towards accelerated aging can also adapt in the opposite direction. Not perfectly, not infinitely, but meaningfully. Human biology is remarkably responsive to consistent environmental signals. Sleep can improve, mitochondria can adapt, inflammation can decrease, strength can return, insulin sensitivity can improve, the nervous system can regain flexibility. The body is not static. Even later in life, it continues responding to conditions. And this is where many people misunderstand longevity completely. The goal is not to become biologically invincible. The goal is to create conditions where the body feels increasingly able to repair instead of merely survive. Because some of the most youthful people are not those who avoided all stress. They are the ones whose biology repeatedly found its way back from it. And modern science is beginning to reveal something extraordinary. Even small, repeated changes in daily biological conditions can gradually alter the trajectory of aging itself. So, can biological aging actually slow down? Not stop, not reverse time completely, but meaningfully influence how the body ages? Modern research increasingly suggests the answer is yes, not through magic, not through perfection, through repeated biological conditions that support repair more often than breakdown. And one of the most important things to understand is this: the body changes slowly, until suddenly the changes become visible. That works in both directions. Damage accumulates gradually, but recovery does too. One good night of sleep will not transform the body, but consistent deep sleep over months changes physiology measurably. Blood sugar regulation improves, inflammatory signaling may decrease, hormonal rhythms stabilize, cognitive performance improves, tissue repair becomes more efficient. The body begins reallocating energy toward restoration again. Movement works similarly. The first few weeks of exercise often feel uncomfortable because the body is adapting to increased demand, but underneath the discomfort, something extraordinary begins happening. Mitochondria start multiplying through mitochondrial biogenesis. Capillary density can improve. Muscles become more insulin sensitive through GLUT4-related glucose transport adaptations. Blood vessels produce more nitric oxide, improving vascular flexibility. The body upgrades itself in response to repeated use, and importantly, these changes occur at almost every age. One of the most hopeful discoveries in aging science is that human biology retains adaptive potential far longer than people once believed. Even older muscles can strengthen, even aging brains can maintain neuroplasticity, even cardiovascular systems can improve conditioning, not infinitely, but significantly. This is why some people seem to biologically come back to life after changing environments, routines, movement patterns, or recovery habits. Viewers may recognize this from their own experience. Sometimes people feel dramatically younger after improving sleep, walking consistently, reducing chronic stress, rebuilding strength, spending more time outdoors, or simply recovering from prolonged burnout. Because the body responds to patterns, repeated signals become biology. And one of the most underestimated longevity factors may be surprisingly simple: consistency without overload. Extreme approaches often fail because the body experiences them as additional stress: punishing diets, excessive exercise, constant restriction, obsessive optimization. These strategies may temporarily produce visible changes while quietly exhausting recovery systems underneath. Sustainable biology tends to look less dramatic: regular movement, stable sleep, protein intake sufficient for tissue maintenance, exposure to daylight, periods of calm, meaningful social connection, recovery after challenge. Simple does not mean weak. Simple is often biologically sustainable. And sustainability matters because aging is cumulative. Tiny conditions repeated thousands of times shape the trajectory of tissues over decades. One walk changes little. 10 years of movement changes everything. One stressful week rarely defines aging. Years of unresolved physiological overload can. This is also why aging rarely progresses in a perfectly straight line. There are periods where people biologically decline rapidly. There are periods where resilience returns. There are plateaus, recovery windows, setbacks, adaptations. The body continuously negotiates with its environment. And perhaps the most important realization is this: the goal is not to eliminate aging. Aging is part of life. The real goal is preserving function, resilience, energy, and adaptability for as long as possible. To remain capable, to recover, to move freely, to think clearly, to stay connected to life instead of gradually withdrawing from it biologically. Because youthfulness, in many ways, is not appearance alone. It is flexibility, a nervous system that can settle, muscles that can respond, mitochondria that still produce energy efficiently, blood vessels that still adapt, a brain that still learns, a body that still believes the future matters enough to invest in maintaining itself. And that final idea may be one of the most profound truths hidden inside human aging. Your body is always listening to the life you repeatedly live, not occasionally, repeatedly. Every meal, every night of sleep, every period of stress, every walk, every recovery cycle, every environment. The body learns from repetition, and over years, it slowly becomes shaped by it. Which means the real story of aging may not be written by time alone, but by the ongoing biological conversation between your body and the conditions you give it to survive in. If you zoom far enough into the human body, aging looks less like a single event and more like millions of tiny decisions unfolding every day. A cell repairs itself, or doesn't. Inflammation resolves, or lingers. A night of deep recovery happens, or gets interrupted. Muscle is maintained, or slowly lost. Blood vessels remain flexible, or gradually stiffen. The body is constantly adapting to the conditions surrounding it. And over time, those adaptations become visible. That's why aging can feel so mysterious, because people rarely witness the process while it's happening. They only notice the outcome years later. The energy that disappeared, the recovery that slowed, the face that changed, the resilience that faded. But beneath all of it, biology was responding the entire time. Quietly, patiently, continuously. And perhaps that's the most important shift in perspective this changes. Aging is not simply punishment from time. It is information. Information about stress, recovery, environment, movement, sleep, connection, safety, adaptation. Your body is not trying to betray you. Most of the time, it is trying to protect you with the resources and signals it has available. Even inflammation is protective. Fatigue can be protective. Stress responses are protective. The tragedy is not that the body responds. The tragedy is when modern life keeps forcing those responses to remain activated for too long. Because the human body evolved for cycles: effort and recovery, danger and safety, activity and rest, light and darkness. But modern environments often erase those cycles, and the body pays for that confusion biologically. Yet there is something deeply hopeful hidden inside all of this. Human biology remains remarkably adaptable, not infinitely, but far more than many people realize. At almost any age, the body can still respond to better conditions. Sleep can become deeper, strength can return, circulation can improve, metabolic health can stabilize, stress resilience can increase, inflammation can decrease. Sometimes gradually, sometimes surprisingly quickly. The body is always listening for signals about what kind of future it should prepare for. And once you understand that, many healthy behaviors stop feeling like punishment. Movement becomes communication. Sleep becomes reconstruction. Recovery becomes biological investment. Calm becomes chemistry. Consistency becomes cellular instruction. You stop trying to fight aging and start learning how to work with the biology that has been trying to keep you alive this entire time. Because the people who seem to barely age are usually not people who escaped biology. They are often people whose biology remained more adaptable, more restorative, more capable of returning to balance. Their bodies still experience stress, still accumulate damage, still move through time like everyone else. But somewhere along the way, their systems preserved something many others slowly lose: the ability to recover. And maybe that's what youthfulness really is. Not the absence of years, but the preservation of repair, the preservation of flexibility, of energy, of resilience, of biological trust in the future. Your body is rebuilding itself right now as you listen to this. Proteins are being replaced, cells are communicating, neural pathways are adapting, tissues are responding to the conditions of your daily life. Invisible biology is becoming your future in real time. And the choices that shape aging are often far smaller, far quieter, and far more repetitive than most people imagine. Not one miracle moment, but thousands of ordinary moments teaching the body whether to merely survive or continue investing in life. And once you see aging that way, you can never completely unsee it.